Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Kristin Phillips-Hill, and today's conversation is about human trafficking, accountability, and the work being done right here in Pennsylvania to combat it. I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, the gentleman from Jefferson County, Senator Cris Dush, who has helped leading the Bipartisan, Bicameral Anti-Human Trafficking Caucus. Senator Dush, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for asking me again. It's good to be back with you on this podcast and the work that we've done over the last several years. And I'm really excited that you are one of our founding members of the Anti-Human Trafficking Caucus. This is a working caucus, and it's very unique. It's the only one in the United States with bipartisan and bicameral. So
let's start off simply.
Okay.
So what is this caucus focused on, and why now? You and I have worked for a long time on human trafficking.
Yes.
We've been in the trenches on this issue, but what really spurred you to create this focus and establish this caucus now?
Well, it's very simple. You were key in helping get the Buyer Beware Act through, but what I kept seeing was that there was politics is what it is in every legislature. And while I was down at the JUST conference, the Stop Juvenile Sex Trafficking Caucus that Shared Hope International puts on, I was the only legislator down there. I felt like a unicorn, and they mobbed me when they found out that they had a legislator there. All these survivors, and there were 1,100 people down there.
Wow.
And when they tell you their stories, I have to tell you, you can never unhear them.
I completely agree with that. And I was so grateful. There was a woman who really got me engaged on this issue. Her name was Jan Wilson. And, I'm so grateful that she slowly educated me because
Yes.
the stories are so horrific. It's really difficult to wrap your mind around them.
It is. And when I hear the anguish in these survivors about the pieces of legislation that could help them, that they get proposed and then they go away. Or, they just nobody gets around to them. And what I found in talking with some of the Democratic colleagues was that there's frustration on their side as well with this. And I thought, let's start trying to get something that's going bipartisan and bicameral, because we do have people on both sides who want to see this stuff done.
Yeah.
I worked with Senator Collette last year on Senate Bills 45 and 46.
So for our friends and
Yes.
folks listening in, Senator Collette is a Democratic senator.
Yes.
She is from Montgomery County.
Yes.
Just to give some context.
And what we did was we divided up the bill. She was very interested in the bill that I was proposing, and what we did was we divided it up and let her have half and I'd take half, and we worked as a team to guide it through on both chambers. That happened, and what the significance of that was, people saw that, oh, he really doesn't care whose name's on the bill. So when I started approaching other members over on the other side of the building, it was much easier. We managed to get that signed into law, and it became much easier. The whole idea of having a bipartisan and bicameral caucus was a much easier sell than it probably would have been otherwise.
Yeah. Well, and talking about that great package of legislation that you and Senator Collette championed, I was so happy to be able to co-sponsor that and join
Yes.
in continuing to advance that work. Of course, I was proud to sponsor Act 1 of 2020, which was the Buyer Beware Act. You didn't vote on that here. You were still over in
Yes.
the House, but I had your great support over there. I really appreciated it. The real focus of that legislation was shifting from the actual victims being criminals to focusing on those individuals who are creating the demand for trafficking of human beings. I think that was really huge. I wasn't comfortable with the title or the name of that bill. It just made me cringe. And I remember Jan saying to me, that's good. That's exactly what
Exactly.
we want people to do, right? So we've made that that law in the Buyer Beware Act. We built on it with the work that you and Senator Collette did. So from your perspective, has that made a difference?
Well, what it has done is it's made some of the buyers take a second look. I'm fairly certain that that's started to happen. But there is more that needs to be done. The focus has, for too long, way too long, been on the people who are caught up as victims in the human trafficking area. Nobody wants to become a prostitute. And
Jan used to say that to me all the time. Children will say, I want to grow up and I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a nurse.
Yes.
No child ever wakes up, goes to school and says, hey, one day I want to grow up and I want to sell my body.
No.
No one. No one says, I want to grow up and be a prostitute.
And so they end up in what's called in the community the life. They end up there because they've been coerced, they've been tricked, they've been drug overdosed, and then started in it. The traffickers get video of them and then say, "You want to have this at your church, you know, or whatever," and those people are hooked and they're felt trapped. One of the things that we have to do, and we are going to continue to add more legislation that will go after the buyers, because we have to increase the penalties and we have to make sure that law enforcement, education is a big part of what this caucus is doing. We have to make sure that law enforcement and the prosecutors understand that these people are victims, and we're working on legislation to give exemptions from prosecution on some areas, like the prostitution related charges, as well as give immunity from prosecution for some offenses when the offense, and we got to be careful that we're not making this big enough you can drive a truck through it, but vacatur, where if somebody actually is forced by their trafficker to commit a crime, and the traffickers will do that in order to have a negative impact with law enforcement and the courts, and then the trafficker comes back and says, I'm your savior. So it's the Stockholm syndrome kind of thing, where they get their victim to be more indebted to them and also afraid of the police. There are a whole lot of different pieces of legislation that we've got to work on it.
There are gaps,
yes.
Right? And so we've done great work.
Yes.
There's still much more work that needs to be done. Just like every other type of crime, the criminals stay a couple of steps ahead of the law. So closing those gaps, I certainly think is really important. That's why I'm really thrilled to be able to be part of this effort. And you know, I think it gets back to this, we have to identify that victims are not criminals, victims are victims. And the biggest issue is if you are buying, you are part of the problem. You are the criminal.
You're the trafficker. If you're buying, you're the trafficker, and you're just one partner in that trafficking model. So education, like I said, it's key, and a lot of our legislation is geared towards educating people. But one of the things, we'll get back to this, but one of the things I would like to have the people who are listening today and watching today understand is that if we've got a number of great resources around the Commonwealth, and if you've got one of those organizations that wants to come into your school and educate the administration, educate the parents through the parent-teacher organizations, the teachers and the students in an age-appropriate way, we've already, with some of the things that we've been involved with, the members on the caucus, the trainings that we've had, we've already saved lives. And that's, I mean, it's very comforting, but we also understand, because we know that what we're hearing back from these school meetings and stuff, that there's a whole lot more going on out there.
Well, and I think this has been something we've been trying to counter. This is something that a lot of people perceive to be happening in foreign countries, in big cities. This is not something that's happening right here in our communities, but that's exactly what is happening. It's happening in our communities, it's happening up in Jefferson County, it's happening down in York County, it's happening all across Pennsylvania. Talk about why this issue is so important now. I always think about us being the Keystone State. We are at the crossroads of so much that happens. We're at the crossroads of our nation's economy. We're at the crossroads of our nation's transportation sector. And I think that really impacts this huge problem that we're seeing. But talk to me about your perspective on why this issue matters so much right now.
Well, I'll give you two different areas. First of all, Jordan Pine with Greenlight Operations, she was over in Thessalonica and she was doing volunteer work with human trafficking going on over there. It is the hub of Europe for human trafficking. So they're going around the table when she first gets there and they're asking, okay, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from. And she said she was from Pennsylvania. And the first thing out of somebody's mouth was, oh, are you near Carlisle? And Jordan's, how do you know about Carlisle over here? That's the East Coast hub. We are the Keystone State for the wrong reason in this instance. The trafficking that's coming through because of our interstate system, and we're access about 40% of the U.S. population within about 10 hours drive. This is the hub on the eastern coast. And since we're talking about people in your district, well, it's not, but it's close by. One of the survivors I met down at the Just Conference, she had testified against her uncle. He had gotten locked up for sexually assaulting her. The parents divorced. The father moved away. Then shortly thereafter, a youth pastor came in from the town where her father was. The youth pastor started trafficking her and some other kids. She told her father about it. Her father said, set up a meeting, we'll take care of this. Dad came and they both raped her. And the trafficking continued both in Lancaster and Chester counties. This is happening in our communities. We have mothers selling their kids or renting out their kids for drugs. And that's happening in our communities. And it's not, there's no socioeconomic aspect to this either, because one of the survivors I talked to, she's out of the Epstein thing. She's from an upper middle class, I won't go any further than that, but background. And Judge Lung, he's out in the public about this from out in Colorado. His father was a dentist and trafficking his son. So this is, there's no socioeconomic or racial, any kind of thing that you ever want to try and divide people up on. It doesn't matter.
It's, as we sit here, I've worked on these issues for a while, and I still just find it so reprehensible, so unbelievable, and just so terribly distressing to think that this happens to innocent people every day. In small, charming little towns like Carlisle and in bucolic, pastoral Lancaster County, and all across Pennsylvania. When we look ahead, when you look ahead, what does success look like for this caucus? How do we make a difference?
Success for me is that we provide law enforcement with the tools to go after the buyers and the sellers. our students are educated, our parents are educated, and the awareness is out there. And every pillar that we're working on, the survivors, they need to know that there are people out there that actually care. I'll give you an example there too. Center County had a bust on a ring that had been going since back in the Polaroid days. And they just busted these two guys from Huntington and Center counties. The assistant DA up there, when he gave his speech, that he's in charge of the prosecution in this case, I could tell that he was trauma informed and that he understood what the survivors had gone through. And I had never met the man, but I was in Center County, it's part of my district, and popped in one day and I said, I got to talk to him. And we went in and I asked him, I said, have you been getting a ton of phone calls? And he said, yeah, why? And I told him why. I said, your empathy came through loud and clear. And that people knowing that they can come to somebody like him and actually get justice, and actually he's very active in trying to find help for them. He actually used to work as a defense attorney for the Asian women who were being trafficked in Seattle. That's how he learned about, that's how he became, they call it in the space, trauma informed. And his job was to try and help people understand, the prosecutors understand that these women aren't in this voluntarily. And he's going to be a good resource.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Senator Dush, this has been an incredibly informative conversation. Thank you for taking the time and to come and have this conversation with me. Thank you for the work that you are doing, the leadership you have been exhibiting to help combat this absolutely heinous crime. Where can people learn more about the Anti-Human Trafficking Caucus or follow along with the work that you're doing?
Well, of course, both your webpage and mine, and we are working and developing an Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force Caucus webpage so that people can be informed. I would say also, well, that's for what we're doing and the other members. And by the way, I have to compliment you and Seth Grove, because you guys have been leading over there on what became the Buyer Beware Act before you transitioned over from the House. But Shared Hope International, Zoe International, Green Light Operation, they all have web pages that are very informative. Teachers, school administrators, parents can all find resources on there that will help them and show them what to beware of. And the Acervo Project is another one that we work with extensively.
If you're being trafficked and you listen to this podcast, what do you recommend? Where would you tell someone to go?
Get a hold of the district attorney first. If you don't, I understand not everybody's on the same page yet. We're working on that, and there's a lot of education to be done there. But you can get a hold of either one of our offices or anybody that's on that Anti-Human Trafficking Caucus, because we all care. Then the Salvation Army has a good team of people here, but the Acervo Project, it's ASSERVO project, and Green Light Operation down here. Green Light is just fantastic. They've got a brand new home for a survivor to escape to and get away from their trafficker. So those are places to start. And if they get a hold of our office, we will definitely work to help them find resources.
Indeed, indeed. Senator Dush, thank you again. Today's guest was Pennsylvania State Senator Cris Dush. Thank you again for tuning into today's episode. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to visit my website at senatorkristin.com. This is Kristin Phillips-Hill signing off, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.